Hey, fourth graders. It's Monday, August 10th. Look, I know the date today. And yeah, hope you had a great weekend. Trying to think. Not much exciting at the Clark house. We're getting ready to move RJ out. He's moving in with his friends to go to college at the U of A. Go Cats. So we were busy doing that. Trying to think what else. I did a lot of stuff for school, getting really excited about it. Boy, there are some fun things you can do online. I'm learning so much. Okay, so there's one thing. Ooh, we went white night swimming last night. That was really fun. Cranked the tunes outside. I don't know how nappy the neighbors were with us, but that's okay. It wasn't like it was super late or anything. Yeah, that's about it. Today is an exciting day for you all because you're going to find out who your teacher is. Woo! So exciting, right? Yeah, that's super exciting. I'm excited too. I'm excited to hear all about it, hear what you think. All right. Let's get on with dun 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 into the dream. There, Paul and Francine. Now, if you remember when I left you on Friday, Paul and Francine, you know what? Had just escaped out of the apartment with Noah and Cookie because the two government dudes had come into the house. And can I just tell you, a lot of government guys and girls are sort of like the people in the conference room eating donuts. Yep, they don't care a whole lot about kids sometimes. Sometimes, I said sometimes. Sometimes they do. Maybe like 50-50. Anyway, Paul and Francine know that it's probably not a good thing to be around them. Okay, I've been talking for almost 2 minutes. I'm sorry. So now I will get on with chapter 8 of Into the Dream. At the back of the building was a ramshackle garage, and behind it, a dark, narrow alley. There were no lights here, and Cookie, being black, was difficult to see, but her thoughts reached out like a bright beacon, leading them quickly and quietly down the alley, around a corner into another long alley, and then onto an unfamiliar street. I wonder where she's taking us, thought Paul. I guess it doesn't matter as long as we get away from them. The sparks coming from Noah suddenly erupted into a purple shower of longing and confusing. I want my mommy. Where is mommy? Where is she? I want her. I want her now. And he squirmed in Francine's arms. This must be scary for him, right? He doesn't know. It's all right, Noah. Oh, by the way, these are all like thoughts in their head. They're not really talking out loud, just so you know. It's all right, Noah. We'll see her in a minute. Isn't this fun? Fun, Noah. We're having fun, fun, fun. And from Cookie, a wave of warmth, comfort, and protection that, after a moment, brought Noah sparks of excitement back again. I don't know how much longer I can carry him. He's getting pretty heavy. Well, maybe you can put him down. I think we've lost them. It's lucky his pajamas have feet. They were on a busier street now, and Cookie was not moving quite so fast. Francine set Noah down on the sidewalk, and they each took one of his hands. Cookie turned back for a moment to lick his face. Noah chortled and splashed them all with affection and glee. Good thing he's not moody, thought Francine. There were cheap restaurants and bars with bright neon lights around them now. Gritty dust blew along the sidewalk, and a man weaving down the street almost bumped into Francine. Cookie loped along, only a foot in front of them, moving slowly, no longer sure of where she was going. She's not being the leader anymore, Paul said aloud, not wanting to offend her. We'll just have to decide where to go ourselves, said Francine. We can't depend on her for everything. Suddenly, Cookie stiffened, spun around, and barked loudly. Oh no. A large, dark car pulled over to the curb just a few yards behind them. There were two men in the front seat, and in the back, you guessed it, was Mrs. Jalila. She leaned out of the window and shouted something at them, but they did not stop to listen. Hide and go seek, Noah, shrieked Francine against Noah's intense yellow blast of recognition and desire to go back to his mother. It's a game. She has to try and find us. This time you take him, Paul. Okay, again, that was all a thought. I just want you to know because I can see that in the book with the italics, but You can't see that, so sorry. Paul scooped him up. But where? No answer came from Cookie. Her head darted around frantically, but now there was no familiar alley to be found. This way, commanded Francine. How about if every time they're thinking something, I do like this while I'm reading so that you know it's a thought? Does that work? Okay. Thank you for agreeing with me. I love this because you can't disagree with me. Okay, this way, commanded Francine. She dashed ahead, then plunged down a flight of steps into a subway station. The subway, Noah, the subway is fun. Did you ever go on a subway before? Paul thought desperately at him. Noah turned his head, disturbed as Paul struggled down the steps with him. But when he saw that Cookie was still with them, he relaxed again. Francine was already at the turnstile, hopping nervously. I don't have any money, Paul. But I don't know if I have any either. He sat Noah down and fumbled through his pockets. His hand emerged at last with some change. Here, Francine, this is for you, and this is for me. And I don't think we have to pay for the other two. But where are they? Paul turned back to where he had set Noah down, but there was no sign of him or Cookie. But he was just there 1 second ago. Maybe he went back up the stairs to his mother. Oh no, Paul moaned and started back for the steps. Wait, there they are on the platform, cried Francine. Noah and Cookie, both looking around with wonder at the filthy subway station and the crowds of people, were standing on the other side of the turnstiles, dangerously close to the track. As Noah peered over the edge, the shriek and rumble of an approaching train came echoing down the tunnel. But how did they get over there? Said Paul as he dropped his money into the slot and pushed through. I don't know. Just get a hold of him before the train comes. Paul dashed across the platform, grabbed Noah, and pulled him away from the track as the train screamed into the station. Noah jumped up and down and clapped his hands, sending out exploding sparks more intense than the high-pitched squeal of the brakes. If he doesn't get that under control, it's going to drive me crazy, Paul complained as he picked up Noah and stepped onto the train. Stop because I think my video is going to stop any minute. Maybe not. Okay. Well, maybe sometime we can try to teach him to tone it down. If we ever get out of this mess. Come on, Cookie. Did you remember what that meant? Just checking. Francine stood in the doorway of the train and beckoned to the dog. Cookie peered into the train, then threw her head back, then peered into the train again. Come on, Cookie. It's safe. It's okay. You won't get hurt. Do it for Noah. Oh, no. What is it? Paul said aloud. He turned away from Noah, still grasping his hand firmly, and looked toward the stairway. The two men had reached the bottom and Mrs. Jalila was right behind them. Cookie saw them too and bounded, at last, onto the train. But the train did not seem inclined to move. They watched helplessly, though. They watched helplessly through the train windows as the two men and Mrs. Jalila dropped coins into the slots, pushed them through the turnstiles, and hurried toward them. Where can we go? What can we do? I don't know. You think of something. Mommy, here I am. You found us. But as the two men barreled toward the train, the doors of the car slammed shut. The men paused for an instant, then ran down the platform searching for a car that was still open. Mrs. Jalila looked in at them briefly, furiously shaking her head, then turned and ran after the men, disappearing from view. A moment later, the train groaned, jerked forward, and rumbled into the tunnel. Did they get on? Asked Paul, peering anxiously toward the back of the car. Not on this car, but they still might be on the train. Noah looked up at Paul and smiled. This is fun, but why didn't Mommy come? You'll see her pretty soon, Francine told him. Isn't it fun being on this train and being with us? Oh, wonderful being with you. Anyone watching this video who doesn't know what I'm doing must think we are ridiculous. Well, what's new, right? We're always ridiculous. There was a flood of orange with ecstatic blue spirals dancing and sizzling across it. You understand me like Cookie, not as loud as Cookie, but better, more like me. You're the only ones. It's wonderful. Oh, why are you afraid? I don't like to be afraid. Why didn't Mommy come? Lights flashed past them as the train careened through the dark tunnel. Swaying, Paul and Francine turned to look at each other over Noah's head. I don't know what to tell him, Francine said aloud. I'm sure getting tired of only thinking about how much fun this is all the time, said Paul. Why shouldn't we tell him the truth? It's just that if he's scared, he'll be harder to handle. We have to keep him amused. Noah, she thought, can you hear other people besides me and Paul and Cookie? I listen to Mommy a lot. She can't hear me when I try to talk to her. How about other people? Said Paul. Like on this train. So much on this train, all different, confusing, hard to understand. What about that man right there? Asked Francine, indicating a fat man reading his newspaper. There was a brief pause. Well, on top of it's kind of the two men were wearing heavy overcoats and woolen skiers masks over their faces, but must have been dying of the heat, commented Mrs. Baskett, the teller. Nevertheless, they remained cool as they left with the bank with $10,000 in tenants and $20 bills. Then underneath that, it's about riding on this train and hating it and wishing he was in a big car with a driver and how they shouldn't let dogs on the train. He doesn't like Cookie. He wants to kick her. There was a splash of red anger. Suddenly, the man's newspaper tore itself out of his hands, hovered in front of him for an instant, and then wrapped itself around his head. Okay, that's pretty funny. That's where like telekinesis would totally come in handy, right? If you could read like what mean thoughts that people were having, and then you could do things to them that they don't even know how it happened. I think it's hilarious. Noah, you shouldn't have done that. But he wanted to kick Cookie. For a moment, the man just stood there waving his hands helplessly in front of him. Then he peeled the newspaper off his face and swung around angrily. What? Who did that? He demanded. A few people in the car turned to look at him, seeming apprehensive and yet bored, except for one old lady who had witnessed the whole event. That's what they all say, she observed in a high pitched, quavering wail. They always say that. Leave them alone. Just leave them alone. I'm sick of all of them. Just leave them alone, if you ask me. It would be interesting to find out what's going on inside her head, Paul murmured to Francine, turning sideways to lean closer to her. His eye caught a flurry of movement at the back of the car, and he peered closer, then grabbed Francine's shoulder. There they are, he whispered. They've been coming through the cars, and now they're on this one. Francine looked quickly, then spun around. We have to get into the next car, she said, with Noah and Cookie. How can we? Paul, we can't let them catch us. But just at that moment, the brakes squealed. The train jerked several times, almost knocking them down, then slid into a brightly lit station and stopped. Off the train! Fast! Ordered Francine. They pushed through bodies, dragging Noah along with them. Cookie squirmed in between legs, and they surged from the train, locked in a tight knot of people. I wonder where we are, said Francine as they hurried across the platform, looking for the exit. Wonderland, Paul read. That's the name of this stop. Wonderland. How weird. Wonderland, repeated Francine. So that's where we are. Come on, there's the steps. Are they behind us? It's hard to tell. There's so many people. Where are we going? Come on, Noah, up the steps. But where are we going? Wonderland, Noah. We're going to Wonderland. But what's Wonderland? It's a surprise. You'll find out in just a minute. At the top of the steps, they found themselves on the edge of a large, windy parking lot. On the other side of the parking lot, the word Wonderland flashed in bright red neon against the sky. Colored lights whirled behind it, and they could hear faint, tinny music and distant shrieks. It's an amusement park, groaned Paul. Of course, said Francine, the perfect place to lose them. Come on. But said Paul, hurrying along beside her rather reluctantly. I hate amusement parks. So what? She said irritably. It will be easy to get lost in it. There will be crowds of people, and it will keep Noah happy. And anyway, I happen to love amusement parks. Paul sighed and looked behind. There was a street light beside the subway exit, which was getting farther and farther behind them now. Had the two men already come out, or were they still down in the station, or even on the train? Paul? He turned back and saw the lights of a slowly moving car 1 foot in front of him. He darted to the side, barely missing it. Look where you're going! But I was just. For one brief second, he looked behind again, and in that second, he clearly saw the two men and Mrs. Jalila under the streetlight. One of them pointed toward the parking lot, and they started to run. I saw them, he said. They're still following us. They're in the parking lot now. We've just got to get into that park. Carry Noah. He can't go fast enough. But why are we running away? Noah demanded as Paul clumsily pulled him off the pavement, settled him into his arms, and kept on running. We're just in a hurry to get there, Francine lamely explained. Noah, it's so much fun there. They have good things to eat and cotton candy and all sorts of games to play and rides, wonderful rides to go on. The Wonderland sign curved across the top of a large, ornate iron gateway, the entrance to the park. As Paul ran through it, Noah turned and squirmed in his arms. Wait for Cookie! I want Cookie to come too. They had almost forgotten about Cookie. She stood just outside the gateway, her tongue hanging out, shrinking back from the crowds and noise on the other side. Her dream feeling of fear washed over them again, stronger now than it had ever been before. They hurried back to the dog, and Francine kneeled behind her. Don't be afraid, Cookie. It's just a place where people have fun. No one will hurt you. It's the best way to keep Noah safe. Cookie whined deep in her throat, and the dream feeling flowed over them again. Paul was still holding Noah. Maybe she knows something we don't know, he suggested, frightened now by the memory of the dream as well as by the pursuing men. But what could she know? Asked Francine. It doesn't make sense. She's just afraid because she's never been to a place like this before. She stroked Cookie's back soothingly. Please, Cookie, everything will be okay. We've just got to get lost inside here or else they'll catch us. It's the only thing we can do now. Cookie growled, then turned to look toward the parking lot. There they are, cried Francine, pointing. Come on, Cookie. Cookie turned toward them again and took a few slow steps forward. A sort of spasm passed over her as she moved through the gateway. Then she looked up questioningly at Francine. Over there, Francine directed. It's crowded and we have to get away from this entrance. Now there was noise all around them, the ringing of bells in game booths, music blaring and throbbing and tinkling, the grinding of machinery and the clacketing of wheels. Behind it all rose the shrieks of people plunging and spinning through the air. Red, blue, and yellow lights whirled against the dark sky. Lacy chains of white glittered and looped. Lacy chains of white glittered and looped across the buildings. Fading paint peeled from the wooden booths, and brightly colored trash danced and fluttered past their feet as they hurried through the crowd. Noah squirmed continuously in Paul's arms, his dazzled eyes moving rapidly from one amazing sight to the next. His bleeps and sparks and crackles of wonder and excitement flashed through their heads, not quite blotting out the tense and foreboding images from Cookie. They paused beside a large carousel that glittered with many mirrors and garlands of light. Wheezing and puffing with effort, it emitted a blaring, tuneless waltz as the stiff wooden horses rose and dipped, and children screamed ecstatically. Noah leaned forward, almost tumbling out of Paul's arms. I want to go on that thing. I want to ride on that. I want to get on. Let me go get on. Should we take him on it? Paul asked Francine. Not yet. She peered anxiously into the crowd behind them. It's too soon. I'm not sure we've lost them yet. They moved on, and Noah was immediately distracted by other sights. All around them, there were people of all ages getting in their way and bumping into them. And perhaps it was because there were so many different kinds of people everywhere that Paul and Francine, though they were doing their best to be alert, did not notice the ones they were looking out for until it was too late. No, I'm not stopping. I'm just checking in with you. That was a lot going on, right? Because I feel like amusement parks are kind of crazy anyway. And then if you're like in an amusement park and you're hearing all these other people's thoughts and feelings, that would, I don't know, that would give me a headache, I think. Anyway, the only warning was a sharp bark from Cookie and a sudden flash of panic from Francine. Paul turned to see one of the men holding a struggling Francine firmly by the elbow. His eyes raced around the crowd and spotted the other man, and then Mrs. Jalila coming at him from different directions. Both escape routes were cut off, and he stood frozen, unable to think. Run, Paul! Francine screamed silently at him. Don't just stand there! Get away from them! But where? He screamed back at her. They're on both sides now. Over there, to the left. The Ferris wheel. Get on it. They think you can't get on there. That's not what it says. It says, they can't get you there. Paul did not think. He ran. For so long now, his only object had been to keep Noah away from the men, that no other consideration crossed his mind. He sprinted past Francine, avoided the man who was holding her, and dashed up the rickety wooden steps at the base of the giant wheel. He did not listen to Cookie's howl or Mrs. Jalila's screams as he dropped some coins into the operator's outstretched palm and allowed himself to be helped with Noah into the swinging wooden seat. Okay, here it is. Whoops. Nope, there. Okay, so they're hopping on the Ferris wheel. The scary guys have Francine. What's going to happen? Let's see. He did not think as the safety bar clicked into place in front of them. The operator stepped to the side and pulled the lever. And with a heavy groaning sigh, the machinery came to life. It was not, in fact, until he was swept backwards with a sudden swift rush, high, high into the air, that he remembered how much he hated Ferris wheels and realized the significance of those menacing lights swinging in arcs in the dream. Oh my gosh! So the guys have Francine. Paul and Noah are on a Ferris wheel. Paul is scared to death of the Ferris wheel. I I don't even know what to say. I mean, at some point they're going to have to get off the Ferris wheel. What's going to happen then? I would think the people are waiting for them. So see if overnight you can come up with a strategy for how they could be safe, or what your prediction is for how they'll be safe, because I am not really sure. I mean, that was a lot of stuff going on. All the thinking, right? All the colors, the flashes, the things coming into their head, the running all the time. Look at this is like an action video now. Okay, that's all I have for Monday. That was a lot. This is a long video. I'm sorry. Anyway, hope all is well, and hope you're excited about fourth grade and that you found out your teacher today. Life is good, guys. Life is good. All right. We will talk to you on Tuesday. Have a great one. Bye.